Hi. Creative director Maria Grazia Chiuri conceived the collection Dior Couture Spring 2023 as an homage to Josephine Baker, the American-born dancer who arrived in Paris as a cabaret performer in the 1920s and went on to distinguish herself for aiding the French resistance during World War II and campaigning in favor of the civil rights movement in the US. In her latest collaboration with a female creative, Maria Grazia tapped African-American artist Mickaleen Thomas to design the set, which paid tribute to Baker and a dozen other barrier-breaking women of color via giant embroidered portraits that wrapped around the inside of the tent set up in the garden of the Rodin Museum. I think it's interesting to celebrate all the women that are references for other women. What interests me is how women of the past can serve as a reference for the future, regardless of the nationality or the background, she said in a preview. Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, Eartha Kitt, Nina Simone and Diane Carroll were some of the faces that looked down on the guests. It was definitely very strategic to do this, Thomas said before the show. I think just alone for Maria Grazia to want to work with me, as a black woman from America, who works in this genre, is a radical statement in itself, and it's exciting. Josephine Baker was born Frieda Josephine McDonald in St. Louis, Missouri, to a washerwoman and vaudeville performer. Having experienced the horrors of the East St. Louis riots in 1917, she embraced her talents as a way out of discrimination and poverty. Baker began her career by performing in vaudeville showcases around the country and was soon offered a chance to perform in Paris, in La Revue Negra. Once the revue closed, Baker was given her own show, and from there her career skyrocketed. She was the first African-American woman to star in a motion picture, to perform with an integrated cast at the American Concert Hall, and one of the first African-American entertainers who achieved acclaim both in movies and on the stage. During World War II, Baker performed for integrated audiences of French and American troops. She also served as a member of the French resistance forces and smuggled messages in her lyrics that were sent back to France from opposing forces. She received the Croix de Guerre for her efforts. Baker later returned to America to take part in the civil rights movement. She was the only female speaker at the March on Washington in 1968, where she honored women civil rights activists. Modern biographies and interviews with her son have explored Baker's sexuality and found that she had relationships with both men and women throughout her lifetime. After taking some time away from entertainment to raise her rainbow tribe, Baker returned to the stage in a series of concerts at the famous Bobino Theatre in Paris. After a triumphant show and late-night dancing with celebrities, Baker slipped into a coma while asleep and passed away on April 12, 1975, at age 68. Baker's narrative is interwoven with the history of Dior. A couture client, she wore the brand to perform in New York City in 1951 and was pictured attending a Dior show in 1959 alongside fellow singer Juliette Greco. Maria Grazia was inspired by all the facets of the entertainer's persona. Her stage costumes informed the evening wear looks, which included a flapper-style crystal-beaded mesh dress, with a long skirt split at the sides, the better to let its floor-length fringes dance around bare legs. A jeweled bustier top worn with a crinkled Radzimir wrap skirt nodded to the more structured looks the singer favored in the 50s. Tailored pantsuits in dry shantung silk, blistered jacquard or strict grey wool were modeled on the military uniform that Baker wore during the war and to address the Great March on Washington in 1963. Most alluring of all were the off-duty looks. Silky robes were slung over a black smocked satin swimsuit or a rhinestone-embroidered top and shorts. Their easy allure was echoed in the softness of the coats, whether in masculine herringbone cashmere or an opulent floral and gold jacquard. Dior's creative director likes to explore the ways in which women wield fashion as a weapon, and was struck by the way Baker redefined her own narrative, shedding the racially stereotyped banana skirt she wore as a dancer at the Folies Bergère to appear in the pages of Vogue in the latest styles by couturiers, like Jean Patou. Josephine Baker was a woman that immediately understood the power of fashion. Fashion shows also in a way propose a territory, where you can play with clothes and you work on your image and your personality, and you change the rules, so I found the connection super interesting. Taking in her first show as the soon-to-be chief executive officer of Dior, Delphine Arnault sat in the front row next to brand ambassador Jisoo from the South Korean girl band Blackpink. "It's the first time in my career that I have a female CEO," Maria Grazia said. "I feel super happy because it's a new experience for me. And I think it's great because it's different. I think it's an important step honestly also in the fashion industry. Because she has a lot of expertise, she's really respectful of the artist part." It made for a heady cocktail of female influence that served to counter, in no small measure, Couture's long history of white, male-dominated rule. Thanks for your watching. Your Valerie.